What's up guys? For this video we're going to be tackling a project that has been needed for a very long time, and that would be the rust repair on the back half of the frame. As you guys know, back early last year I did a lot of repair on the body mount brackets and a few other things on the frame underneath of this truck. That was definitely the worst of the rust, but there's definitely more that needs to be fixed. I've got this 11 gauge sheet of steel and then this piece of square tube right here. And this piece of square tube I'm going to be cutting in half lengthwise and using it to repair the bottom section of the frame here, because it's a 2.5 inch square. This whole section here, especially on the back side, is very rotten. And then let me climb into the truck here. And here you can kind of see, it's really dark back here, but this whole section here is rotten. You can see holes in here. This is actually a little bit worse if it'll focus on it. There's chunks missing here, and then there's more rust holes going in through there. I found a really nice rust hole right there where the old fuel tank hoop used to be, so that's great. I gotta fix that as well. There's a few other sections that I need to repair. So there's a spot right here that's real thin. Same spot on this side is also thin. It's only right here. None of the other areas have that issue. I don't know what it is with it being that way, but it is, and it definitely needs to be solved. And then there's some really thin areas right here where the old bump stop used to be. Step number one is to start cutting stuff out. So I'm going to begin cutting the driver's side of the frame first, get that lower portion cut out first, then begin cutting out all the other rot, start measuring and figuring out how much of this stuff I have to put in. Alright, so here's a little look at where I'm at. I cut the tubing in half. Here's one piece sitting here, the other one is right there. And I got this chunk of the frame chopped out, and as you guys can tell, especially from this side, this thing was pretty rotten, so needed to go for sure. You can see where it was cut. I need to come in here and do some trimming up here and some grinding, because this is where one of the rust holes was. I need to come up here and cut this out, but I think I'm going to get the lower piece welded back in before I start cutting up too high. I don't want things to start getting all wobbly up here. And then I need to come up, I'm going to trim this hole out, I'm going to chop this hole out, probably just come up here and cut a big chunk out of this, just so it's one solid panel. And then of course, obviously this will be next. About like that. I'm just going to sit in here, weld it from the outside like that, and that should take care of it. That's coming along pretty nicely. I'm going to finish cutting stuff. Probably going to get that thing just zapped into place real quick, and then once that's kind of zapped in, I'll come in here and I'll start chopping this section up and getting that crap out of there. Alright, it's a little bit hazy in here, but I wanted to show you guys where I've gotten so far. So there is the patch panel here where the giant hole was. This titanium welder is amazing. These welds aren't flawless because I didn't really clean the metal up all that well when I was going through, and I had a giant gap down here on the bottom. This is working out really well. This welder is so much easier to use than the old black one that I was using, the old Harbor Freight Chicago Electric one. So we got the square tubing welded in. I welded it on both sides over here, and it just welded in the bottom up here, and then I got all the rusty pieces cut out. So there's a gap right here that I still need to patch up, of course. Yeah, this is going well. The new welder makes this so much easier. There's a lot less slag flying everywhere. It welds so much nicer, penetrates a lot better. It's just a way better experience using this thing, and like I said, it draws less power. I haven't popped any breakers yet today, so that's a big plus. I'm trying to get this frame rail finished for tonight and probably wrap things up tomorrow. I'll go and work on the other side. It's a quick little update for you guys. I think the battery's about to die, so I'll get back with you guys maybe later tonight or tomorrow. Alright, it is now day 2. I just realized I was making a video and didn't hit the record button, so I'm already sitting in the truck where I could start talking about stuff. I got the driver's side frame rail done, at least back to, you know, the point I was talking about yesterday with the square tubing and everything. There's the first patch that I did, got the square tube down here, and then I made a patch right here, which is where the old bracket that was for one of the fuel tank straps was. Obviously I have a fuel cell now, so I didn't need that bracket, and I had to cut that thing out in order to get the hole patched up here anyway, because it kind of blocked everything. So I ended up making this little piece to fill in this area. 2 pieces of metal. We've got one here and the long one there. I was originally going to have that long patch right there, and then there's just going to be a very small piece right here. Once I made the small piece and went in to weld it in, I ended up realizing the metal here was a lot thinner than I thought, so I ended up having to cut just a large square chunk out and throwing that in. Otherwise, if I had known it was that thin, I would have just made one, continuous piece. The welds need cleaned up. These welds up on top here are pretty ugly because it was really hard to get the welder tip up here with the cab in the way. They came out alright. I'll just come in here with a grinder, clean things up, and we'll be good to go there. This section from here forward is completely finished, and I'm going to basically be mimicking this setup on this side. I got all the rust cut out of this side of the frame rail on the passenger side, and it was a lot worse than the driver's side. It was a lot worse than I expected it to be. I ended up cutting a lot more material out of here than I thought I would have to. So if we come down here, you can see right here, I cut all the way up into where some of the full box stuff is. I cut the brace piece off there. I'll have to remake one of those. Cut the entire bottom section off all the way up to here. And of course this box right here, which once again is where that hoop went. I've got the lower bar welded back in. It's welded to the back here. It's welded to this section here because this section was solid enough to reuse it. So the frame is sturdy again. I'll get back with you guys hopefully later in the week with an update. We'll hopefully have that final frame rail finished and be able to begin working on the rear half, which is going to be probably just as big of a disaster as the front half. Alright, it is now the following weekend, and I came out here tonight and completely knocked out the center section of the frame, so now I can start working on the back half, which of course requires the rear end to be removed. So we'll go down here and I'll just let you guys take a little look at what all of this looks like. So first of all, I don't remember how much I showed you of the passenger side, but let's just say that it was pretty much destroyed. So we've got that patch there, that one there, this long skinny one here, another one there. That was some of the original metal here, and then of course right here is where the hoop for the gas tank was, which you can see I had to replace both large sections right there. It was very, very thin right here, pretty scary actually. That piece right there is brand new. So on this side, that piece is still pretty solid. I just had to re-weld it to a section of the outside of the frame that I replaced right there. I decided just to cut this whole thing off because it was also pretty thin, pretty rusty, especially on the ends. It was easier just to chop it out, make a new one, and just weld that in. That's a good update for tonight. Tomorrow I'll come out here and I'll just keep plugging away at this thing, get as much of this frame finished as I can so that I can get in here and clean everything, rust treat everything, paint it, and finally have it all put back together. Alright, back for yet another day, and I worked on this thing just a little bit and got the rear end out of it. We got to fix rust. Here is the worst spot right here. You can actually see where it was like pitting into it really weird. This side is in better shape than that side. I'll show you guys that in a second. Last year when I installed the lowering kit, I noticed all the rust here, and I just real quick threw some red paint on it just because it was what I had laying around, and you don't see this anyway, so just to slow things down until I had a chance to actually come in here and fix it. It doesn't look any worse than it did last time I was in here, but that's what all the red paint is for. Coming to this side, a little bit darker over here, but you should still be able to see. You can see it, rust hole, rust hole, rust hole, little tiny pinhole, more rust holes. Like this thing was completely gone in this area here, so definitely going to be cutting that chunk out. Once again, these two holes here, and then this one, it might be solid. I'm going to go into the back behind here and just kind of peek around at everything. Then of course this whole thing here, I mean, you guys can see it's like looks like the surface of the moon. I mean, it's just pitted so bad. Like right here there's like nothing left. You can see right here there's a little thing going on there, and then of course there's the rust hole up here from where the bump stop was, which sucks because the rest of this is like perfectly fine, but then that spot right there is shot. I'm gonna get working on this and I'll give you guys an update a little bit later. Alright, it is now very late in the day. I got all of the welding done, and I've got some rust converter on parts of the frame where the leaf spring brackets bolt up to. So this is what we're looking like right now. You can see the dark spots where the rust converter is on, there and there, and then I put some on top where the shock bolts go. This is just so that I can get paint on all this stuff now that it's open and, you know, exposed. And the patches, you really won't be able to see them that good now that I threw the rust converter on, but there is the long patch right there. You can kind of see the patch I put where the one bolt hole goes right there. So that whole patch, and then I bolted the bracket on, re-drilled it. This is what those look like from the outside. You can see I ground the welds down just so that the bracket would bolt up flush. Now on this side, I only patched the hole that's right here which is where the old bump stop was. I didn't cut it up as far either because the side of the frame was very solid and I left that hole there because this was in the way anyway. I did not have to do anything down here. This stuff was perfectly fine, and I plan on putting in a parking brake back on this truck at some point, so I needed to leave these two triangle brackets on here, and this is one less hole that I will have to remake here because I'm going to be having to redo it over there. I'm so glad this is done. This has taken me 2 weeks to complete. I've gone through a spool and a half of welding wire. I've gone through probably 20 cutting wheels, a grinding wheel. My grinder actually died on me cutting the last, well, it didn't completely die, but bushing or a bearing or something, and it completely fell apart. Maybe I'll do a final update once the rear end is in, everything is painted. For now, that's going to be it. So I'll be back with you guys a day or two with a final update, and we'll be done with all the rust repair on the Dakota. Alright, it is once again many days later. I don't 100% remember where we were at when I ended the video last time, but everything is finished. This is what everything is looking like. So we got black paint, I got rust converter and black paint on everything. The rear end is bolted in. Had the wheels on it, but I took them back off because we're going to be putting the bed on this thing hopefully tomorrow night, which is kind of why I wanted to get the shot right now. All the sections down here that I patched, which is a little bit dark down here, but you can see all that. Of course, I didn't paint anything up in the front there because I didn't do anything up there. My repair down there where the bolts go for the suspension brackets came out perfect. Those bolted up perfectly, and everything is good to go there. I got the inside, top, bottom, everything is 100% painted, and this is a rust-free frame for the first time in many, many years. There's a good shot of the patchwork. I also painted the center bed support that I took out, and you guys can see these pieces were on it. I cut them off because I really don't need them anymore. It doesn't hold a gas tank up, and I cut the rusted section out of it as well. This thing's already been painted and dried because I did it outside. Well, there's a rust hole right there, so I just cut that chunk out and treated it, and it's all good. Didn't really see it being that necessary to patch it because, I mean, it doesn't do much. This thing really just braces the frame a little bit in the center and gives a point for the bed to mount to, so I wasn't super worried. I just didn't want it to continue rusting. So there is the pile of old rusty metal right there. There's the two lower parts of the frame and just stuff. I mean, a lot of it just turned to dust when I took it out, so this is just the stuff that was still solid enough to make a pile out of. We got, you know, this thing that was one of the tank strap things, and just, there's the really bad one. I think it was this one. Look at all that. Yeah, look at just completely eaten away. Now this might have been the good one, but you can see right there. Oh yeah, there we go. This is the one off of the passenger side. That should be just a clean straight line, and it's definitely not anymore. There's pieces of rust. There's a piece of the lower part of the frame actually where the e-brake cable goes. That's pretty bad. So I guess I'll get back with you guys tomorrow. We'll get the bed back on this thing, or whenever the bed ends up going back on. Get the wheels put back on, throw the tailgate on, and this thing will look like a truck again. I'm really excited for that. This looks so good. I've been staring at a rusted out, falling apart frame for the entire time I've owned this thing, and to have this truck pretty much rust free with the exception of the cab and the cab corners and rocker panels is just so cool, because now I don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. So I guess I'll end it here, and I'll pick this up tomorrow. We'll get the bed on, and we'll have a complete looking truck again. Alright guys, this is going to be the end of the video. The bed is on the truck, and I had to make a few adjustments to the frame. So when I cut the section where the old gas tank hoop was, things did move around a little bit, and I think the frame was already kind of tweaked right there before I started cutting stuff, so I had to make some adjustments, which I'll show you guys in just a second. But the bed is also back on the truck, and this thing is looking like a truck again. It's really nice to have this thing all put back together. So give you guys a look at this thing with the new bed. I can't remember if I've shown you guys this bed before when it was sitting on my trailer. Bought this bed very beginning of the winter, junkyard, paid $150 for it. It's in really good shape. It's got a ding down here, and there's a couple of other small dings and stuff on it, and then there's a little bit of rust right here, but this is the only rust on the entire bed is on this arch, and there's a tiny spot on the other one. Rest of the bed is flawless. There's one small dent in the floor there, and there's a small, I guess it's kind of a big dent right here. Compared to my old bed, which was completely rotten everywhere, this thing is pretty much perfect for this truck. It's straight, it's pretty clean, there's very minimal rust right here, but structurally this thing's good, the floor is good. It even has paint on everything, which is a step up from what I had. Now this did come off of a newer truck, so it's got the little plastic trim pieces, which I will have to pull off at some point, but you can see one of them actually is already fallen off of the truck that it came off of before I even got it. And it's a good bed, and it's all there, it's all solid. I have wheel arches for the first time ever. There you go, you can see this side is in much better shape than the other side, so eventually I will be fixing those, but like I said, this is a mile ahead of the old bed that came off of here. This thing is way better shape, looks great, and it is at least a shade of blue. It's not the same shade of blue as the rest of the truck, but it's close enough. I do have the original fuel door and original tailgate on. The fuel door that came with the bed was shot, and I did not end up keeping the tailgate that came with this bed because it was rusted out in the bottom. Ironically, for as beat up as my original bed is, it's actually not rusty anywhere, which is kind of surprising. Like usually the pinch weld in the bottom is rotted and mine isn't, so I'm going to keep the original bed, and I like it because it's, you know, still got some of the old patina remaining there. So yeah, that is let's see if I can stand back far enough so that you guys can actually see it. But there you go. It's a truck with the new bed. So the frame adjustment I had to make, this side of the frame, passenger side, was sitting way lower than the driver's side, and even the driver's side was sitting lower than it should have, so I had to come down underneath of here. Let me grab a light. I'll come down here and show you guys what I ended up doing. So I know the spot that everything got moved was right here. You see that line of weld right there, so I cut the frame and then jacked each corner up and then spread it apart until the gap right here was even, or at least as close to even as I could get it between the two sides, and so that it would be even top to bottom as well. So I did this on both sides, cut it, welded it back together. All the body and the framework is completely finished on this thing now. So also shout out to Aaron from 802 Garage. He visited this weekend and he actually helped me get this bed back on this thing the other day. He also helped me get this new NV3500 from the junkyard the other day as well. So if you guys aren't already subscribed to him, it's 802 Garage right here on YouTube. Most of you probably are and came here from there, but just in case, that's where you guys should go. Go subscribe to him and go tell him that I sent you. I started this whole frame repair thing 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I can't even remember now. It's been so long. This has taken forever. I'm glad it's done and I don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. For the next video, probably going to be doing the brake lines and putting some of the fuel system back together on it so that I can start getting some of that stuff done. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to get some parts ordered so that I can get the new head bolts and the motor, and I'm going to get some new solid engine mounts for that as well. With this junkyard transmission, I should be able to just clean this thing up and just put it on the back of that engine and throw it all in the truck. I definitely get a new trans mount, but that's not that big of a deal. And I'll be able to put all that stuff back in once the brake lines and the fuel lines are kind of done down there, because it'll be easier with that stuff out of the way. We're kind of to the point where the truck will start going back together. So yeah, that's kind of what to expect next. I also need to come into the interior and start ripping stuff out of here as well. So that'll be an upcoming video. Ripping all the blower motor and the heater and the air conditioning stuff out of here, stripping a bunch of the old wiring I don't need, and of course, like I said in one of the last videos, I'm so lost as to where I am right now because this took so long. We're going to be rewiring basically the entire truck once all of everything else is, put back in. I'll be rewiring everything. So that's going to be the end of the video. This video is going to be kind of a mess, a very confusing mess. Things are going to be everywhere as far as clips and progress goes, so I apologize for that. This video is also going to be a lot longer than I intended it to be, because that took longer than I intended it to. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.